Welcome, everybody. It's 1 o'clock. It's Friday, and that brings us to the Sustack Plans Chat Club, where we talk about AI innovations and ethics in marketing and business for 30 minutes every Friday. I'm PR Smith, founder and author of Sustack Planning. We've got Reggie Johnson from Fort Worth, Texas, USA. Thanks for getting up this ridiculous hour. Reggie, you're very good. Wayne Denner from Warren Point, County Down, our safe tech talker. Wayne, good to see you again. You've survived the Easter weekend, gentlemen. All back in one piece. Okay, you see a fourth person on screen there, and that's a little video clip. We're going to try something new. We like to try and experiment with things, so we're going to try something new and play a little video clip later on to you folks. But first, I want to of course, I should acknowledge Tim Hain for that beautiful piece of music. We'll play that at the end and put a link to it. That's Tim Hain and Signals. And if you remember, Tim Hain is the guy that I know that founded the concept of Blegay, blues and reggae. So exciting stuff. Now, more exciting stuff. We have got a heck of a agenda for you today. China regulating digital humans, through to OpenAI new social policy, through to OpenAI a pattern of deception with a question mark, and then on to digital dementia and brain rot. And doctor, that's this video clip I want to show you, talking about in a so down to earth, simple way to understand what you're saying. It's wonderful, but the dangers of social media, it's fantastic. So well spoken. Then on to Anthropic, some more positive stuff. Anthropic refusing to release their new model because of the potential dangers of it. Then more positive stuff about training your AI to be ethical. Yes, you can do that. And then the question of the week, which I found in an essay by the CEO of Anthropic, which is, I love collecting good questions, and this is a real peach of a question. The quality of the question is outstanding. It could save the world. It's that important. And then we finish with the Cambridge professor who couldn't read until he got to the age of 18. Extraordinary stuff. Time allowing, we do a little piece about living with integrity. And that's kind of an underlying theme that's coming up again and again and again. Right. So let's have a look. What are we going to talk about specifically? Wayne, China regulating digital humans and banning kids from addictive services. What's this about?
Oh, yes, that's more legislation that we're starting to see happen now, Paul, in other parts of the world, where they're bringing in more tighter regulation around the use of technology and how it's going to impact children and young people. We are seeing more and more countries across the EU tightening up. We now have Apple in the UK here now enforcing the Online Safety Act, which means anybody with an iPhone now in the UK who is under 18 has to verify their age. So this is all to do with countries, particularly the UK, particularly Europe, really tightening the net now around some of the legislation, around the technology that's getting rolled out, but fundamentally how that impacts our wider society and including our children and young people.
Oh, I like that.
One
Yep.
thought on that I wanted to add is one potential danger I see. Well, I'm all for this kind of like regulation that promotes safety, especially for young people, because we've really had a negligence of this space.
Yeah.
But now with certain powers in place and AI empowered authoritarianism, one thing I see happening is the threat of age verification, ID verification, for the sake of protecting young users, turning into instruments of government surveillance, which we wouldn't have given them access to. So the way that they could leverage this to the advantage of more authoritarian-leaning politicians could potentially make us look back and feel like, wow, social media which is kind of all the reason why they should have gotten on top of this so much sooner.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that, guys, is there was no notification to Apple users in the UK that this was going to be rolled out. It wasn't included in the software notes. The only time people realized that it was happening was whenever you updated your phone to the new version of iOS. You couldn't proceed any further unless you verified your age. Now, they're not even accepting a passport as ID. It has to be a driving license and it has to be a credit card. Those are the two forms that they're accepting at the moment. I am hearing that some people have been able to verify due to the length of time that they've had their Apple account. But there is a lot of people here in the UK that are very, very disappointed that this has been forced upon them without any consultation.
Yes, but let's just kind of ponder about China moving to regulate digital humans and banning addictive services for children. I'm told that means digital humans will require clear labeling. So if you're using bots that look like humans, you've got to put a dirty big sign and say this is a bot, which I think is very useful, and banning services that could mislead children or fuel addiction. And this is what we've been crying out for however long we've been talking about this, Reggie and Wayne. 5-6 years we've been banging on about this. So it seems like there is an awareness of the damages that big tech can do, and it seems to be just starting to spread. We've seen it in the States, Reggie. We've seen any updates, by the way, of anything happening in the States on these kind of regulations and court cases?
Yes, we had recently lawsuits in March and April that went to ruling in favor of the plaintiffs. So there was awardings of damages for addicting adolescent users or misleading users in Los Angeles. There was a big case there, and a big case in New Mexico. And then also there's what's called a multi-district legislation suit, which is a federal group of lawsuits from a variety of areas with 2,465 cases are part of this federal MDL, which is about alleging that platforms intentionally designed addictive features that cause mental health issues in teens. So it's growing, like Wayne said, spreading awareness, or like you said as well, spreading awareness of the need to control and manage some of the harms and to hold accountable what we've been talking about for 5 years. I remember 5 years ago, I was talking about accountability, transparency.
Yeah,
I think that's really important, Reggie, the labeling on the products themselves. If parents, for example, are going to buy these tools, these products for children, it's a bit like going into the store now. You can clearly see what ingredients are in your food, where it's come from, where it's been sourced from, maybe even what technology is being used to produce that food. It's really interesting now that we're starting to see this push towards clearly labeling and identifying the harm that technology can cause.
Yeah, just like cigarette packages carry the warnings, show you disgusting photographs. So we've got Australia, who were the first to kind of get up and say no social media for kids. Greece have just announced a complete ban on social media for under 15s. That's good news. Nikki Petrozzi, who we're big followers of here, she does great work over in America. She says in the past 2 weeks, there's 30 families suing social media companies as a result. The momentum starting to build there, including a school district versus Meta, Snap, TikTok, YouTube. So there is momentum coming. And, we have the Social Dilemma film that we talked about all that time back, and now Molly versus the Machine. It seems like there is an awakening, and the pressure is starting to turn upon our friends, the big tech companies, the oligarchs, as I call them. So that's good news. And I won't say triggered by China, but China getting in, no discussion, bang, that's it. But they seem to be doing the right thing, and good luck to them, and good luck to anybody else that is moving.
Well, note on that is that we've been told in America that we have to master AI and we can't regulate it. Otherwise, China, who won't regulate anything, is going to dominate this. And yet we see China taking steps that we're not taking as far as safety goes. So it's kind of been a myth that China's not regulating at all, and they're doing this cutthroat, whatever it takes to get ahead. It's more, it seems like, not the case.
Yeah, which is good news, really. I'm very pleased to hear China making that move, and we don't often hear good news from that neck of the world with the media we consume. But there it is, good move, China. Well done, and
Could be an opening for multilateral cooperation there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll have to go for that in the years to come if the world is going to survive, particularly as AI gets more intelligent and moves to AGI and super AI. There will have to be common patterns and regulations around the world, I believe, personally. Excuse me. More good news, or is it? Let's ask you the question. So OpenAI have got a new social policy that they're proposing. And they're saying, they've just published a 13-page policy document with ideas, full of ideas to help society navigate superintelligence and its societal impacts. Oh, thank you, Sam Altman. What a great man you are. So he's asking Washington to tax AI-driven profits, creating a wealth fund, implementing a 4-day week, boy, Sam, you are a good man. All this is wonderful. And why you didn't think of it before is the question that comes to mind. But the details of this stuff is, he says, look, we're beginning a transition towards super intelligence, says Altman. So we need a new social contract, and something similar to the sovereign style fund seeded by AI firms that would pay dividends to every American, just the same way as Alaska does with oil revenue. Really, Sam? That would be interesting if you could get that one past your president. So he's talking about containment playbooks for rogue autonomous AI. Well, we've been calling for that for years. And now the CEO of this $852 billion company is asking the US to prepare for a future where his own tech breaks the economic system. How about that? Well, thank you, Sam. I'm sorry, I just do not trust you personally. And Reggie, have you anything on Sam's patterns of deception? I mean, I don't think he's been that straight with us over the years. Have you picked up any stories on Sam?
Yeah, funny you should ask. The New Yorker published a very lengthy article recently that made waves, and it's a long history of patterns of deception from Sam Altman. It goes over hundreds of interviews, hundreds of pages of unreleased memos and notes from some of the top people involved, Ilya Sutskever, Amode, and from his times with Looped, which was a company he founded earlier on. A group of senior employees demanded the board fire him twice because they thought he was not being honest. When he was president of Y Combinator, partners were so frustrated with his behavior that they talked to the founder about trying to do something about it, and they thought
Reggie, sorry to interrupt you midstream there. You're in full flow. Y Combinator, isn't that Peter Thiel?
Yes, that's the investment company. So he was president of that for a while, brought in by Paul Graham, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And when he was there was some question that he was really only doing what's best for himself, including having personal investments, which got in the way of his responsibility to Y Combinator. And there was concerns about, and really when he went away, Graham said, Sam has been lying to us this whole time. And
Wow.
So there's a pattern going back several companies, and there's really a lot of deep information. There's the story of the board firing him and how he undid it. The idea is that, essentially what a lot of witnesses have said is he'll say whatever he needs to say in a given situation to get what he wants.
Who's saying this? Sorry, Reggie, who's saying this?
This is what from a number of people who have known him and have worked with him. A number of witnesses have said, some of them anonymous, some of them have gone on record. They've essentially said he will say whatever he needs to say to get what he wants in a given situation with no regard for the consequences of deception.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs was famous for his reality distortion field, where he expected the universe to bend to his vision. That was more of an ambitious thing, but Steve Jobs never told his employees or his customers that their children and the whole world would be destroyed if they didn't do what he asked. So there's a little difference there in the level of manipulation, the level of convincing people they were working for a purpose of safety, a nonprofit, in order to make the world a better place, and getting them to build something that ultimately profited him. This kind of bait and switch and the complete disregard for the truth is what we see as a pattern. I would encourage anyone to read the article and judge for yourself. I mean, obviously, his own recollection, he tends to go on record in response to this as saying he does not recall this conversation or does not recall that conversation. But there's certainly a lot of statements from people that would know about a pattern of deception over the years that's very strong.
Well, this is Stephen Klein's post that kind of triggered this to us all. So we'll put a link to Stephen Klein's article that actually lists exactly what people say. For example, Dario Amodei, who is the CEO of Anthropic, and we'll be talking about him later on. There's a quote there from saying, well, with reference to Sam Altman, he's a consistent liar. And it's in black and white. You're kind of going, wow, that's pretty strong. He said Paul Graham, then who recruited Altman to lead Y Combinator, said Sam has been lying to us all the time. But the funniest one, I mean, it's not funny, it's tragic, it's awful. But Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, says he kept 200 pages of private notes during his years at OpenAI, and he decided to leave OpenAI. He didn't leave because of the strategy. He left because after Sam Altman denied the existence of a contractual provision, while Amodei was reading this contractual provision aloud to him. He was reading it to him, and all of a sudden, no, it doesn't exist. And he said, "Well, I'm reading it to you." And so at that point, he said, "Well, I'm sorry, I'm leaving the company. This is ridiculous." So yeah,
And those are just those are just some of the examples. Each of those, there are multiple cases that are very similar in this article. The
Yeah.
article written by Ronan Farrow and Andrew Morantz from the New Yorker.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, from the New Yorker, right? Okay, indeed. So one of the quotes that's in there is I'm going to come to you, Wayne, about this, because they're saying kind of that Altman et al. Misrepresented, distorted, renegotiated, and reneged on agreements. And there it is in black and white. These guys are saying this, but surely, Wayne, surely this won't matter actually if he does all this cheating and lying to us, if we're all suffering from dementia, digital dementia. In fact, what is digital dementia?
Yeah, well, we're all familiar with the term dementia, and there's been research going on across the world to try and help people who end up with dementia. Digital dementia is a decline in memory, attention, and cognitive function, apologies, linked to excessive screen time use. So we know that heavy screen time use is widespread among children, among adults. We talked about it many times on the show, the impact that screens have. And if we think of our smartphones, they're playing more of a central role in our daily functioning. And if I think of that from my own perspective, checking your reminders, if you're going up to a place, you're going on to Google Maps or some other technology to find your way there. So we're becoming more and more reliant on our smartphone, and even AI assistants as well now starting to become a huge big thing many people are using on their devices. And when I was looking into this 60 minutes documentary that came out in Australia, and it's something that I'm actually going to sit down and we're hopefully going to watch it over the weekend with my two boys, just the impact. And I think it's a really good documentary for families to watch together, because it gets young people in particular, but not just young people, us all, to think about the impact that smartphones are having on our lives, and how they might be impacting cognitive ability. So when I was looking through that, I thought of and you'll remember this, Paul, the Eric Quailman quote from back in 2017, Social Nomax video that he created. If you can cast your mind back, he said, humans have a shrinking attention span. A goldfish is 8 seconds and a human is 7 seconds. Now, this is Eric Quailman from back in 2017. If we think of where we are now in 2026, so there's a rise in brain fog. There's a huge impact on sleep, and there's reduced real world interactions as a result of the time that we're spending on our smartphone devices. So researchers are warning about long-term risks as well. So people do need to think about practicing better digital hygiene. I've been using that term now for a long time in my workshops in schools, getting the young people to think about what it means when you're using your smartphone and how you practice good digital hygiene. That could be...
Do they get it, Wayne? Do they understand it when you say it to them?
They do. It's about giving them information and tools around the impact that using your smartphone late at night is having on you. If you take your smartphone into the bedroom, for example, the blue light going off, the notifications coming in, how that's disrupting your sleeping pattern, how that you might be waking up the next day with more anxiety and, all those sorts of things. So it is really important that we have those conversations. The key takeaway before I wrap up is that, and this was from a doctor, the brain adapts on how it's used. So constant digital stimulation may be training it for distraction rather than deep thinking. So this is very much still being researched, but trends are concerning.
Trends are concerning. We will put a link to that on prsmith.org/blog, as we do with everything today, including the music, etc., etc.
And I will report back once we watch it in our house with my two teenage boys.
Let's see how we get on. Yes, indeed. That would be fascinating to see.
Let me throw in a comment real quick. Robin said, "I forgot what you said at the beginning of that goldfish sentence, Wayne."
Good man, Robin. Robin who? Very good, Robin. Nice one. Well done. Now, look, I'm going to take what you just said there, Wayne, and wrap it up in the most beautifully crystal clear, simple English that I've ever heard when talking about the potential damage of big tech to kids. This is Dr. Rebecca Foljambe. Forgive me if I pronounce that incorrectly, but it's a piece that was picked up from Liam McGuire, and it's about doctor explaining why social media is damaging kids. And just to kind of give you Liam McGuire's excellent perspective on it, he says what's happening to children and to childhood en masse, right in front of our eyes, should haunt us all. Online, at home, in schools, in social care, across society as a whole, it should haunt us if we just allow this to continue. It's a childhood catastrophe, is what he says. And he has this clip of film from Dr. Rebecca Foljambe. Now, I'm going to show it to you on screen. We've not done this before, so here goes. Let's hope it works. But I just listened to her a couple of times, and it was so crystal clear about the dangers and damages of social media to children and tech, the big tech in general. So here is Dr. Rebecca Foljambe.
It's not that we're saying social media has no benefits at all. There is actually very little robust evidence of its benefits. When you're looking at addictive uses of these devices, addictive uses of smartphones, addictive use of social media, any psychiatrist we talk to or GP, they all say the same. We are so close to this reaching criteria as a diagnosis of behavioural addiction. Now that's serious. We can't have hundreds and thousands of our children at very young ages behaviourally addicted to these platforms. Not just the fact they're using them for hours on end, but the content. Gambling is behaviourally addictive and has laws. And I think the government should feel confident and have the freedom to make those parallels, because the way these children have been so collectively pulled onto these platforms in this way is grotesque, really. And I've been a doctor for 25 years, and the changes we have seen since this stuff came in are so far-reaching, I can't list them. The list is too long. And we know that it is a significant component of why they are the way they are now. And I'm, without doubt, sure that it's a huge part of the mental health crisis we're seeing in them as well. First and foremost, they're not getting enough sleep. 70% of our children aren't getting enough sleep. Obesity epidemic in children, which isn't being made better by the fact so many children, especially in deprived backgrounds, are sitting for hours and hours on screens. So we're actually seeing that in clinical practice. Cases of things like an 8-year-old coming in with peripheral edema because they hadn't moved for 12 hours gaming. There's various physical manifestations of children sitting still for hours and hours when they should be moving, and usually they're on screens, so we're seeing that a lot. Eyesight increases in rates of short-sightedness. Extra hour of digital screen use, the risk of developing short-sightedness goes up by 20%. So a public health campaign to educate and support families is it's not just that these children need glasses. They're at risk of cataracts, glaucoma, retinal detachment. In severe short-sightedness, they're at risk, a long-term risk of losing their sight completely. They often aren't taken to their eye appointments, they're in out-of-date glasses, they're in chaotic families with low incomes, often they're out of school, and what are they doing? They're at home just sitting on screens. The impacts on speech and language are profound, and there's very robust evidence coming out on the fact that we have completely lost the language-rich environment in context world that a child must have from birth in order to fully develop their language.
Wow, it's heavy stuff. We'll put a link to it if people want to share that video. I'd recommend they do. It's powerful stuff, and it's very well spoken from the heart and from the facts, which is great to see that combination. Okay, that's a bit heavy. Let's get a bit more positive before we finish. We've got just about another 7 minutes. Anthropic refusing to release their new AI model. Reggie, is this true?
Well, this is either a sign that Anthropic is really concerned about the world and actually is kind of like altruistic, or it's one of the greatest marketing campaigns we've seen, or marketing tactics.
Yeah.
So Anthropic says that due to its hacking abilities, its powerful hacking, they can't release their new model. They're not going to give it to you because it's so powerful, it can hack anything essentially. So what they're doing is they're working with providers like, say, Microsoft Windows to share it with them to patch any potential vulnerabilities before a 0-day vulnerability is released into the wild. which would be very responsible of them. Now, I think this was something we saw a video that shared this. This was a statement from Anthropic, right? So Anthropic is saying this. Nicholas Thompson released a video, The Most Interesting Thing in Tech, which was an interesting commentary on this. And he pointed out that it's either amazing marketing. When I first saw that, I thought of the episode of South Park where Cartman buys an amusement park in order to not have to wait in lines. And he creates a marketing campaign that says, you can't come in, to everyone. And it makes it so popular. Everybody wants to come in because they're told they can't come in, that it starts making tons of money. But he's frustrated because then there's lines.
Yeah.
But anyhow, the interesting thing is that they've been shunned by the Department of War, right, and by the U.S. government, and you're not allowed to do business with them. So the question is, why are they shunning a company that's actually kind of looking really good in terms of being responsible compared to some of the others? And secondly, is the marketing campaign, if this is that, just targeted at gaining the curiosity of the Department of War for getting them back? That's something I thought of. This isn't something Nicholas Thompson said, but are they just trying to get the curiosity from the Department of War to say, maybe we should take a second look at these guys because we could really use something that powerful? I wonder about that.
Okay, I'm a little bit more positive, and I'll reveal that in our very last item. Before we get to that, I mean, the idea of an AI company being ethical is, you can debate that. Do they behave like that? And maybe, just maybe, Anthropic is one of those companies that does care. We've talked about them before, and refusing to kind of allow their AI to be used for military war, which I thought was honourable, although they did go back and have talks since. But we'll come back to Anthropic in just a moment with the question of the week, which is posed by Anthropic, which is a brilliant question. But just before we do, so we've been talking there about humans being ethical. The next question would be, can AI be ethical? Can it be trained to be ethical? Now, I came across this with Mo Gaudat, and we're big fans of Mo Gaudat, should I say, the Egyptian genius. So we like his stuff. And he's talking about, you can use all these AI tools to amplify your creativity, your productivity, and your ethics. You can simultaneously train your machine or train your AI to be ethical. Now, this is like the lights going on. And not many people have been talking about this, but I think we do need to. He's urging people not to resist the wave of AI, because you can't resist it. Ride the wave, learn how to use it, because it's a wave that can't be stopped. But he says, but by the way, show a proper ethical code, so that while you're learning and developing and keeping your job, or getting a new job, which is AI integrated, he says, you're also teaching the machine to be ethical. And I think this is important. This is a thing we need to come back to. But we can build in ethics to the AI, and why not? Why wouldn't we? And why not make it transparent as well? In fact, it should be transparent, in my opinion. Which brings us to our penultimate piece, which is this Anthropic AI prediction. And I'm going to call it the question of the week. Now, this comes from an amazing essay written by Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, and it's called The Adolescence of Technology: Confronting and Overcoming the Risks of Powerful AI. Now, this might be too much for some people, because I think it's about a 35-page essay. But on the opening page, a pal of mine in Microsoft, actually, I sent a note to thank him for sending it to me, because just the opening paragraph is this. Now, check this out. This is Dario's words. He goes, there is a scene in the movie. This is the very beginning of his essay. This is how it starts, about tech. He's talking about tech, but he goes, there's a scene in the movie version of Carl Sagan's book called Contact, where the main character, an astronomer who has detected the first radio signal from an alien civilization, and he is being considered, or she's being considered, for the role of humanity's representative to meet the aliens. Right? So then she's put in front of an international panel of experts who are interviewing her to decide, is she the right person to speak to the aliens? And the question they ask her is, for me, the question of the month. It is this. So the panel asks the astronomer, they ask her, if you could ask the aliens just one question, what would it be? I thought, wow, that's a great question. But actually, her answer is another question, which is, the question is even better. So here's her answer. And she says, I'd ask them, how did you do it? How did you evolve? How did you survive this technological adolescence without destroying yourself? Isn't that magnificent? Isn't that? We need to be asking this question of our AI. Let's throw it at you one more time. How did you do it? How did you evolve? How did you survive this technological adolescence without destroying yourself? You know, so maybe this is what these runaway AI freight trains, you know, they're hurtling towards AGI and super AI without much thought for controlling them before they produce these more intelligent bots than us and control us. So it's a huge question to ponder. Maybe a good one to finish on. Um, I will save the Cambridge professor who could. Well, no, I'll just mention to you because we're going to stop here. Another good news note is a Cambridge professor who couldn't read. How did this happen? Well, this is Professor Jason Arday, and I mentioned him in a post I did during the week about Happy World Autism Awareness Day. You know, Jason never spoke until he was 11, and he only started to learn to read when he was 18. So he and I put a list of celebrities, including Dan Aykroyd, the actor in Ghostbusters, Anthony Hopkins, Silence of the Lambs, Greta Thunberg, the wonderful protester, David Byrne, I love his music with Talking Heads, and Elon Musk. I'm not a huge fan, but he is the richest man in the world. All of these people have autism and have done pretty well for themselves. So don't despair. Wait for the joy of what's to come further down the road. Okay, Live with Integrity we'll pick up next week because we have got to 1:31 and we've got to let you go. You've all got your stuff to go for the weekends. So we're going to finish where we started. We're going to finish with Tim Haynes, beautiful track, the founder of Blege, and it's called Signals, which is a very nice piece that he's produced some years ago. And here we go. Lovely stuff from Tim Hayne. I forgot to mention, folks, we won't be right back next week. I'm taking a holiday, so we'll be gone for 7 days to West Cork, beautiful West Cork. I'll report back after that. We'll be glued to the golf over the weekend with all sorts of Americans and Irish and English fighting for the wonderful Masters. So it'll be a fun weekend. We wish you all a fun weekend, in fact. Reggie, thank you very much once again for getting up this hour of the day. And Wayne Denner, thank you so much, Wayne. So we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Have a great weekend, folks. All the best for now.